Continuing on with the concept of bubSort, this was the piece of code which we had obtained in the previous episode based out of these steps. In this episode, we have to write a complete program in C as well as in Java and Python making use of this piece of code. So, let's get started. Let me first code bubSort using C language. This is the way the main function looks in C language. And within the main function, as a programmer, it is my responsibility to create an array with 6 locations, and this is the way I can create my array. And you know, this was the data that I was supposed to sort. And this data, obviously, I will have to place it inside my array A. Also, you know, there were totally 6 elements, and hence I would declare a variable n and initialize it to 6. You also know that we have made use of the loop index variable I, j, as well as the variable temp which had helped us in swapping. So, I'll have to create those variables as well. And after all of this, I will have to sort my numbers, and for sorting, this is the logic which I would include it within the main function. And really, are the numbers sorted? Well, I would get to know if really the numbers are sorted or not if in case I can print my array. And the printf statement which helps me to print the array is this. After all, this printf statement can just print probably one element present in the array, but then I will have to print all the elements, which means that this statement I will have to enclose it within the loop like this. Obviously, this loop is going to help me to print all the elements present in the array. Anyway, this is our complete program, and when I'll execute, this is the way that I get the output. So, I'm sure you've been able to understand as to how we can code bubSort using C language, but there are many more ways of coding the same program in C. Would you like to know them? Look at the way I have coded the main function. It is doing 3 activities: the input activity, the sorting activity, as well as the output activity. This is not a good style of programming. What I mean to say is that every function should do just one activity, but in my case, the main function is doing 3 different activities, and this style of programming is what is called as the unstructured style of programming. You, as a young job aspirant, should never do the coding in the unstructured style. You have to do it in the structured style. In other words, you have to do your coding in a manner where one function does only one activity. And how do I really convert this unstructured to the structured style? Let me tell you. To convert this to the structured style, I will have to remove the sorting activity and the output activity from the main function. And how do I do it? Very simple. To remove the sorting activity and to remove the output activity, this is all I am supposed to do. But then if you'll ask me, now is the program going to execute? Certainly no. There are a few more things that I have to do syntactically if this all has to execute. Let me tell you what we have to do. As a programmer, it is now my duty to enclose this sorting activity within a function, and I would enclose it within a function called bubSort. Similarly, this output activity as well, I have to enclose it within a function, and I would enclose it within the display function. And not just that, I may also have to declare a few variables within these functions. If you would notice the functions carefully, in the bubSort, I have made use of the variable I, the variable j, and the variable temp, but I have not declared them. Obviously, it's a mistake, so I would declare those variables. And also, if you would look at the display function, I have made use of the variable I, but I have not declared it, so I am going to declare it. And if you now look at the main function, I am not making use of the variables I, j, and temp at all within the body of the main. So why really should I be declaring them? In other words, that piece of line, I am going to eliminate it. Well, if you'll ask me, by making all these changes, is the program now going to execute? Well, there are a few more steps that I need to perform before executing this. If you now look at your program, you have ensured that each function is doing just one activity. The main function is just doing the input activity. The bubSort is just doing the sorting activity and the display is just doing the output activity, and this is what we call as the structured programming style, where each function does just one activity. But then, though you have written all of this in the structured style, you still have not linked them together. What I mean to say is that it is your responsibility as a programmer to make the main function call the bubSort function so that your data gets sorted. Not just that, you should also make the main function call the display function so that you will be able to see the result. What I mean to say is that in the main function, you need to add 2 lines of code to call the bubSort and then to call the display. How does all this add up and how the control flow looks? Let me explain. As a programmer, it is important for you to know that it's always the operating system which hands over the control to the main function. And once the control reaches the main function, it completes the input activity of placing the unsorted data inside the array, after which there is a call to the bubSort function, and hence the control shifts from the main function to the bubSort function, and you know the bubSort function is going to sort the data, after which the control is going to go back to the main function, and the next statement in the main function happens to be a call to the display function, and hence the control now again shifts from the main function to the display function, and the display function, once it displays the results to us, again the control is going to go back to the main, and then from the main the control goes back to the operating system. Anyway, when we execute all of this, this is the output that we get. Oops, why the error? Let me tell you. Obviously, there are going to be errors. Carefully look at the way you have coded your bubSort. Within bubSort, are you really using only the variables I, j and temp? Don't you notice that you are also making use of the array A as well as the variable n? Similarly, in display as well, are you really using only the variable I? Don't you see that you are also making use of the array A as well as the variable n? But you have not declared the array and the variable n either in bubSort or here, and that is why the error. So, some of my viewers might suggest me that, oh, it's such a simple error, so just go ahead and declare an array as well as the variable n there, as well as declare an array and the variable n here. Well, please understand that that would be the most foolish thing for you to do, because just in case you happen to declare an array there, then it means you are declaring a new array for yourself and sorting that new array. But then this bubSort is not supposed to sort any new array. This bubSort actually has to sort that array. Similarly, if you will go ahead and declare a new array as well as n here, it means that the display is displaying its own array. But then this display is not supposed to display its own array, rather it has to display that array. So, you should not be declaring the array and the variable n either there or here. But then the question remains that if we don't declare, we are going to get an error. So, how do we really overcome this error? Well, there are 2 solutions to this. Let me explain. The first solution is to make both my array A as well as the variable n as global. Well, if that is confusing, let me bring it back to the way it was originally. Let me explain that if you would notice the main function carefully, you would realize that I have created the array A as well as the variable n inside the main function, which means that these 2 entities are owned by the main function. And because they are owned by the main function, obviously the bubSort as well as the display cannot simply use it as it is. Why? After all, it is local to the main, and something which is local to the main can only be used by that particular function. Obviously, these 2 cannot use, and hence the error. And if you'll ask me what the solution is, a very simple solution to this problem is that I would make both of them as global. In other words, I would be declaring them outside the main function. And the moment I put them outside the main function, you must understand that now all the 3 functions, the main, the bubSort, as well as the display, have access to the array A as well as the variable n, and because the access is there, obviously there wouldn't be any error, and if in case I execute, this is the output. So this happens to be one of the solutions. But then if you'll ask me, is this a better solution to declare the array A as well as the variable n as global and hence solve my error? Well, though I am getting the answer, but still this is not a good style of programming because global variables can actually put you into other kinds of troubles. While I may not be able to tell you what are the kinds of troubles that it may put you in this episode, certainly I can give you a much better solution than this. What the solution is? Let me continue. The second solution is to have them as local. But then I know this would be worrying you because the moment I make them local, it means that it is owned by the main function, and these two functions also need that array A as well as n, but now don't have access because after all you have made both the array A as well as the variable n local. So the question is that how do I really ensure that they remain local but still become accessible to these two functions? That is what I need to tell you, and let me tell you, here is where parameter passing comes into the picture. I'm sure all of you would have heard of this term called parameter passing and how really I can pass it as parameters and solve this problem. Let me tell you. All that I have to do is that while I am calling bubSort, I should also be passing the array A as well as the variable n as parameters. And how do I do it? Like this. Yes, that is the syntax through which you are telling the main function to not just call bubSort but also pass the array A as well as the variable n. And if you'll ask me, is the problem solved? No, it's only 50% of the problem solved because though you are passing both the array A as well as n, you are not collecting anything here. That's a mistake. What I mean to say is that while something is being passed, it is your responsibility as a programmer to also collect it. And how do I collect it? Like this. Yes. So what I really have achieved is that not only is the bubSort function being called, A and n are also being passed as parameters and also being collected, which means that now bubSort certainly has access to that array and bubSort certainly also has access to that n, and hence certainly it has access to everything that it needs and we would have avoided the error. But then I will also have to do it on the display function as well. I'm sure by now you've figured out as to what next you need to do. Yes, you have to pass both the array A as well as n as parameters even to the display. And how do we do it? Like this. But then you know that's only 50% of the job done. The other 50% is that you should design your display in such a manner that it really collects those parameters. And how to do it? Like this. Well, now what we really as programmers have achieved is that in spite of the fact that A and n happen to be local to the main function, still I have designed my main function in such a manner that it is generous enough to share both the array and the n to both these functions, and not just has it been shared, it's also been collected and it's being used. So there is absolutely no error now, and when I'll execute all of this, this happens to be the output. So in this episode, what you have been able to understand is to how we can code bubSort using the C programming language. And also you have understood the two styles of programming, the unstructured style as well as the structured style. And not just that, you have also understood the concept of local, global and the parameter passing as well. Anyway, if you really are interested in writing the same code using the other two popular languages, that is Java and Python, all that you have to do is to watch my next episode.